Welcome to another Hot Air Sports podcast with me, Macca, and me mate Mahona. And geez, I reckon the city of Manchester is not a very happy place to be at the moment, mate.
No, it doesn't matter whether you support City or United, do you? It's all tears in their cornflakes today, mate. Absolutely terrible. What a result this morning. Sevilla knocked out of the Europa League, knocked out Manchester United in the Europa League, and Manchester United huffed and puffed, but they couldn't get it done, could they, mate?
Yes, all after they got their customary penalty. And Mr. Fernandes popped it away, but good to see a former Liverpool player, Suso, equalising, and the winner coming a bit later on in the second half. So great result for Sevilla. They've got a good history in that Europa League. They won it 3 years in a row and actually beat Liverpool in the final back in 2017. So, they've got a big history in this tournament. So, really, I mean, even though Inter Milan and Shakhtar play their semi-final tomorrow, you could probably say that they're possibly the favourites to win it now.
Yeah, two English links there today as well. I think Luke de Jong used to play for Newcastle United as well. He got the winner. That cross in, it just went straight over the top of Slabhead's head, didn't it? And Lindelof couldn't get it either. And he just ghosted in back post, knocked it in for 2-1. And, United just couldn't get it done. They have got a great history, don't they, Sevilla, in that competition, the second-tier Europa League competition. They won it 3 years in a row with Unai Emery. Emery, of course, who went to Arsenal and couldn't get them performing there. But no good. I really thought Man United, they really had it in the bag. They were all over them in the first half, but it was almost like as soon as they got their penalty, they decided, we're just going to play defensively. I just do not understand teams that play like that. Sevilla, once again, their goalie was absolutely fantastic. Just like the week before when they played, who did they play the week before?
They beat Wolves 1-0.
When Manchester United came up against that hot goalie, was it Copenhagen? No, who did they play? Frankfurt?
Copenhagen.
Copenhagen. Yeah, that goalie, he pulled off like 18 saves, and I think the goalie this morning probably pretty much the same. So, Man United, no trophy for them this year. How sad.
The goalie that you're talking about for Sevilla is Sergio Rico, who actually got relegated with Fulham a few years ago, and just looks a completely different goalkeeper now than he was back in those sad old days under in Fulham when they got relegated. Of course, Fulham are back in the Premier League this year, so it'd be interesting to see how they go. And the Champions League, shock result.
The Champions League. Yes. Oh my God, mate! Oh my God. Okay, let's go through these results one at a time, shall we? It started with Atalanta 1, Paris 2. I thought Atalanta were very, very plucky. They got robbed by two cruel goals in the last minute or so of the game. Mbappe came on with about half an hour to go and just looked absolutely amazing. Playing on one leg, he just, down that left-hand side, he was just tearing them to bits. And quite sorry for Atalanta.
It looked like he was on one leg.
No, I know, but absolutely. And Neymar was just amazing during the game. The only thing he couldn't do was score a goal until the very last minute. But yeah, they were very plucky. I thought Atalanta played really well. Probably very unlucky to lose that, but Paris got through there. So Paris through to the semi-final. Then RB Leipzig came through with a shock win over Atletico Madrid, 2-1. Atletico were once again punished for playing that football again, just sitting back, letting the other team have the ball, trying to hit on the counter attack. You can play that to a certain extent, but you're against RB Leipzig. You'd think you'd be able to go on the front foot. They've got too much talent to play like that, and I was quite happy they lost actually. Back to his old dirty tricks, trying to hold up yellow cards, all that sort of stuff, and all their players taking dives left, right, and centre. So goodbye to Atletico Madrid, and then the big one. Oh my God! When I say a big one, I mean the score as well. 8 goals in this. This reminded me of when when Germany beat Brazil in the World Cup a few years ago. Yes. Yeah, it reminded me of that. Barca absolutely humbled by Bayern Munich. Coutinho scored a couple of goals, came on late, and Liverpool could actually be in the money if you were telling me the other day, didn't you? Well, tell me that story.
Yeah, there's apparently a clause in the contract. I don't know how true it is, but apparently if Coutinho wins the European Cup or Champions League as it's called now, Liverpool get a bit of money as part of the sell-on clause. So
Well,
it's
fine.
interesting. Barcelona just looked a shadow of the team they've been in years gone by, and despite having Messi and Suarez up front, who both looked good to start with, but as the goals started to pile in at the other end, just looked more and more miserable. And I think just that aging Barcelona team, and odds on that Mauricio Pochettino might be the manager in the next couple of days. So he'd be walking
maybe
into a difficult situation.
Yeah, well, a massive rebuild there, mate. I mean, I've heard Suarez today's been put on the transfer market. PK said, look, I'm happy if you want to ship me out, bring in some young blood. And today, massive news that I've heard is that Messi has asked for a transfer this morning. He said he doesn't want to be at Barcelona next year. So City, probably the only destination for him. I would actually quite like him to go to City, if you ask me, because then play through Messi all the time. I mean, it would become very predictable. Someone like Phil Foden, who's been waiting for years for his chance, will have to just wait some more as a 35-year-old comes in to take his place. So, oh my God, it's just a mess in Barcelona at the moment. They've got a lot of rebuilding to be done. 8-2, just an absolute embarrassment. Their manager's been sacked, Kike Saint-Etienne, which is not a surprise. Man, I mean, I thought I thought Bayern Munich would win that game, but I didn't think it'd be 8-2. That was just a crazy game. And how efficient were Bayern Munich, mate?
Oh, they were amazing. And as we said last week, I mean, you picked the result, not quite the scoreline. But I thought that just Barcelona would just be too strong. But how wrong was I in that one? So Bayern Munich, yeah, as you say, just a well-oiled machine. They looked absolutely amazing. Some of the young players in that team were just outstanding. Davies on the at left fullback was incredible. And then you look at some of the talent they bring off the bench. Kingsley Coman, Corentin Tolisso, and Thomas Muller has a new lease of life.
I know.
But Thomas Muller he's got a new lease on life. 2 years ago, they were all saying he's gone and Bayern Munich were going to release him, but he was amazing. He just manages to find space, and even though he's not scoring the same number of goals he used to, man, he's creating them for others, and of course helped himself to a couple of goals in that game.
Yeah, they were just phenomenal. And the most amazing thing about it was that Lewandowski, who's got 40 goals this season, only got one in the 8. Absolutely phenomenal. So there you go. That was an incredible result. And then actually almost as incredible yesterday morning, the other side of Manchester, poor old Manchester City. Pep Guardiola, who's been brought in to bring them the Champions League, couldn't get it done again. They went down 3-1 to Olympique Lyonnais. Raheem Sterling with the miss of the century. I don't know whether you've seen this. About a yard out, ball coming across, just had to pop it in the goal. Harder to miss than get it in the goal.
I reckon I might have scored that on my wheelchair.
I reckon you would have scored it, mate. Just plonk your wheelchair there, just hit it in. Absolutely phenomenally bad miss by Raheem Sterling. Actually reminded me a bit of his finishing when he used to play for Liverpool. His finishing used to be a little bit like that.
It was
a little bit hit and miss. He has improved a lot over the last few years, but man, he's going to be kicking himself. And then, of course, Olympique Lyonnais go down the other end and score their third goal, 3-1, and take it away. So that was poor old Pep, done and dusted one more time in the Champions League. Oh dear, how sad, never mind.
Yeah, he's quite right. And some interesting semi-finals. The Leipzig-Paris Saint-Germain game should be a cracker. You'd expect Bayern Munich to beat Lyon, but you would have expected Lyon to lose to Manchester City as well. So you can't really give either of those games up. But at the end, I think we're going to be seeing a PSG-Bayern Munich final come next week.
I think that's probably the safe call, but who the hell knows, mate? One-off games. Lyon have beaten Juventus and Manchester City. Who's to say they can't beat Bayern Munich? Very interesting, though. Both semi-finals, France versus Germany. no Spanish, English, or Italian clubs in the semi-finals for the first time in living memory.
Yeah,
That's kind of crazy.
Yes, Inter Milan, the sole Italian representative, they're left in the Europa League, of course, and they play Shakhtar Donetsk in the morning. Should get through in that one to face Sevilla in the final, but as we've said, a one game, over 90 minutes, who knows what's going to happen. Bit of transfer talk around at the moment with, looks like Liverpool might finally be getting their man in Thiago Alcantara. He played for Bayern Munich in the 8-2 mauling of Barcelona and just looked absolutely superb.
He was incredible.
Into that Liverpool midfield like a glove fitting on a hand. I think he's going to be a superb player. And
he offers something a little bit different, doesn't he, mate? He offers something a little bit different.
He does. He's sort of a bit of a cross between Fabinho and Gini Wijnaldum. You know, he's got the passing of Wijnaldum and just the general all-round player Fabinho, and he looks after that Bayern Munich back four very well as well. So we gave him a 4-year deal, which is pretty interesting. He's 29 years old. It's a 4-year deal. That's an interesting call. It's a change in philosophy from the Liverpool thing. I reckon they probably watched that game against Bayern Munich and against Barcelona and just said, "Who cares, mate? Give him whatever he wants." He was quite right.
Phenomenal. So really looking forward to seeing him. And the other guy that Liverpool are looking at signing is Ismail Assar. I absolutely love this guy. He scored 2 goals against us for Watford. Plays for Senegal, a good friend of Sadio Mane's, and I would love to see him as a backup winger for us as well. And that would just about complete our transfer dealings, I think, if we get him. Maybe another backup centre back. I'm not sure. We've got a couple of young guys that could maybe do the job there. But that would be a left back. We got Kostas earlier, getting Thiago Alcantara for the midfield, and another winger or another forward player. Perfect, mate.
Yes, the other one that is a bit of a surprise that's possibly leaving Barcelona is the Frenchman, Antoine Griezmann, who, he's just turned 29 himself and looks like he might be on his way out of there. Arsenal look like they managed to hold on to Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, so that's good for them. And Juventus are open to selling Paulo Dybala with Manchester.
Are they?
And Spurs sniffing around. Yeah, I guess if you've got Cristiano there, why have anybody else?
Mate, he was their best player last year. He is a phenomenal player, that little Dybala. I hope he doesn't go to United.
Yes, quite right indeed. No football on the local front over the weekend due to the COVID restrictions, but the mighty Mount Albert Ponsonby still hold on to first place in Division 1. So,
of course they do.
Them going well, and we've got the playoffs coming up in the A-League. Still not sure who the Phoenix are going to be playing, but they're going to be without 2 of their better players. Gary Hooper, the centre forward, he's damaged his hamstring, so he's gone for the rest of the competition, which is such a shame. And Tim Payne, the right fullback, who earlier blotted his copybook by riding around a golf cart, but drunk when when COVID first struck. So he's out with injury as well. So
the Phoenix did you watch that 3-0 loss? They lost 3-0 obviously to the Newcastle Jets over the week.
I just saw the highlights. I thought they were a bit unlucky not getting a penalty at
They were.
And then of course Newcastle go straight down the other end and score.
The goalie was on fire for Newcastle. They played. We had a lot more shots on goal. I thought we were a little bit unlucky, but worry now, man. Their form hasn't been too good over the last 3 or 4 games, and we're heading into the playoffs soon. They've got to start winning.
Yes, they are going to have to turn that around. They played well before the break, but since the COVID break, they've not really looked their old self. But looking like their new self, the Warriors put in a good performance against the Panthers over the weekend. Didn't quite get the job done, but certainly showed a bit of character in their 18-12 loss.
Yeah, they sure did, mate. Can you see the smile? See that smile? That's for the Warriors as much as you, mate. It's fun being a Warriors fan again. The faith is back, mate. They lost to the top of the table Panthers, but it was a tough game, 18-12. was the final score. I was laden with effort, intensity, and a never-say-die attitude that I want from my team, and I haven't seen this in the Warriors for so long. Coming into the game, the Panthers had won 11 and lost just one match. So that sort of showed you the sort of uphill battle we were fighting, and I really wasn't too confident. I mean, I've seen games like this before where they've cracked, and put on 50 points, and early on it looked bad, man. They had 24 sets in the first half, the Panthers, and there was goal dropout after goal dropout. They went up 10-0, and I thought this could be anything. Oh my God, this is not looking good. However, backs to the wall, they got on the board with a final play of the half when Chanel Harris-Tavita, who was again a star for a young man, was gathered. His bomb was gathered by Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, who crossed for his first try of the year, which is unusual for him. He's having a bit of a tough season, old Roger. And then they crossed in the second half as well after a 20-minute stalemate. Winger Patrick Herbert, who's been on fire since the break, he's been playing very, very well. He crossed to make it only a 4-point game. And then the Panthers kicked the penalty goal, which was very interesting with 10 minutes to go, just a show of respect. So it was an enthralling match. I really, really enjoyed it. We were in the game right the way to the end, and that's all I want from my team. There was a little bit of funny stuff going on in the crowd, a bit of racial abuse as well, which was picked up on the sideline there. A handful of fans were subsequently escorted out of the venue. Very, very sad. They were dressed in Warriors jerseys and All Blacks jerseys. Hate to see that, mate. And especially when you look at the makeup of all the teams. I mean, both the teams, filled with Aborigines, Maoris, Pacific Islanders. Why? Who are you abusing racially? And the guys that were racially abusing them were Maoris and Pacific Islanders. I don't get it, mate. So, yeah, really sad. Horrible, mate. Horrible. In the transfer market, after no news except for loan signings for the Warriors for so long, we secured a new coach and a football director last week. We've made two great signings this year. For next year, in the positions actually mentioned last week, in prop and centre, we've signed Parramatta Eels prop Kane Evans. He's one of the tallest players in the competition. He scored a great try over the weekend. Played 108 appearances for the Roosters, and he's 110 kgs. He's 199 centimetres. It's a big unit, and he's been secured on a 2-year deal. And also hard-running St. George centre, Ewan Aitken, has been secured. He scored 38 tries and 115 NRL appearances, and he's played 3 tests for Scotland and was on the cusp of State of Origin last year as well. He's a good player. Warriors signed a couple of good players there. I'm very happy with that. And we play the Bulldogs this Sunday at 4 o'clock. Here are the results from round 14. The Roosters lost to the Storm and also lost a number of their star players, 24-6. That was on Thursday. On Friday, the Warriors lost to the Panthers, as we've just discussed. The Eels, 12, lost to the Dragons, 14. In Mary McGregor's last game for his beloved St. George Illawarra after 25 years. On Saturday, the Sharks, 30, beat the Titans, 18. Big controversy in this game, Macca. I don't know whether you saw it. Kevin Proctor sent off for biting Sean Johnson. Did you see that one?
Yes, I did see that on the news last night. Pretty interesting stuff. And then Johnson turning around saying it never happened. Don't quite know what's going on there, whether it's just mates sticking up for mates or what the story is.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. I mean, I watched it live, and yes, it was a sort of a high tackle. His hand was over there, and he sort of was around them. It looked like he might have. It's hard to tell. But then it was the way that Johnson reacted. He screamed and yelled, and then there was a bit of abuse between the two of them. And Johnson said, well, you're being a person. And they got into a little bit of a slanging match. And then Henry Perenara said, well, what do you want to do about it? And he said, well, he bit me. And so then he sent him off. After the game, though, Johnson's like, no, I don't want to talk about it. No, it won't be going to the judiciary. No, nothing happened. It's like, well, okay. Very, very, very strange. But we're going to hear more on that anyway. I'd say he'll go for a skate for a while. Cowboys 30, lost to the Rabbits 31. That was an absolute cliffhanger. Barn burner. 1 point drop goal in the last couple of minutes. The Raiders just keep doing what they keep doing. 36-8 against the poor old Broncos, who are just ants at the moment. And on yesterday, the West Tigers 29 beat the poor old wooden spoon Bulldogs 28. They can't buy a trick, the poor old Bulldogs. And the Knights 26 beat the Manly Seagulls 24. The Seagulls are in free fall. Looking at the ladder, Panthers on top with 23 points, followed by the Storm and the Eels on 22. Then got the Roosters in fourth, And then Canberra, Newcastle, South Sydney, and Cronulla make up the 8. The Warriors sit in 11th on 10 points. We're just 4 points out of the 8, and that's our NRL wrap.
Super. On to Super Rugby, and of course the big game was cancelled over the weekend. Luckily for the Blues, because I think the Crusaders would have thrashed them.
Hang on. I've got here. Blues beat the Crusaders by default because the Crusaders were too scared to travel to Auckland with a broken trophy.
Oh, is that right? Oh,
yeah, that's what I reckon.
Good try. Yeah, of course that game was cancelled, but the game which ended up being played on Saturday afternoon between the Highlanders and the Hurricanes turned out to be a real barnstormer. The Hurricanes had 3 tries disallowed, all quite legitimately, I would say, and scored another 3, but not quite enough for the Highlanders, who, under the guidance of Aaron Smith in his 150th game for the Highlanders, coming away with that game 38-21. And boy, Aaron Smith just proved his class once again. He is the world's best halfback. There is absolutely no doubt about it in my eyes. Possibly right up there with the best that the All Blacks have ever had, I think.
I was going to say, mate, if you were going for the top halfback, All Black halfback of all time, probably the people you'd throw up there, you'd throw Loveridge, you'd probably go Graham Bishop, you'd probably go Justin Marshall would have to be there because of the amount of games he played, and then you'd say Aaron Smith, and maybe before all of them, Sid Going. So maybe there's five phenomenal halfbacks. I think Aaron Smith's the best of a lot of them.
Oh, absolutely. One of those, Dave Trapper Loveridge, you'll hear a bit more about in our top 5, but without giving too much away. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Aaron Smith is just, he's got a great all-round game. Often you'll see halfbacks with 1 or 2 really good assets to the game, not so good on the third one. I mean, you look at Justin Marshall, great running, great around the base of the scrum, great kicking.
The pass.
Wasn't such a great passer. Sid Going, really good passer, really good around the base of the scrum. His kicking probably wasn't as good.
Yep.
Dave Loveridge, again, his kicking wasn't as good as it as the others, but he played alongside some great first 5/8s, the likes of Doug Bruce and Nicky Allen and the like. So, then as you say, Graham Bishop, another one with a great pass, great around the field. Again, the kicking not so great, but Aaron Smith, his box kicking is just out of this world, and there's no real other halfback close to him. Wellington fans will say TJ Perenara's up there, but he falls more into the Marshall class. Great around the base of the scrum, good general all-round play, good kicking, but his pass just lets him down sometimes. So, Aaron Smith, his 150th game, and Ash Dixon playing his 100th Super game, not just for the Highlanders, because he started out with the Hurricanes, of course, being a Hawke's Bay product. So, the Highlanders finishing off on a win. And with the table, Crusaders obviously finished up on top. The Blues finishing on 24 points. They, of course, got 2 points all for the non-game. Then the Hurricanes on 21. The Highlanders, that position, they always say the table never lies, but I think it's lying in this case, because the Highlanders were a lot better than 4th place in this competition. They played some very good rugby.
They did. They had a number of close losses, didn't they?
Oh, they did. And then, of course, the hapless Chiefs finishing with just the 5 bonus points going over.
And to be fair, mate, the Chiefs had a number of close losses as well. I mean,
5 losing bonus points.
I mean, that's toss of a coin stuff. There could have been 5 wins, which could have completely altered things. So that's the thing when you only got 5 teams, it was absolutely amazing, wasn't it, mate? Super Rugby Aotearoa.
Absolutely brilliant. I really do hope they get a good competition going next year with the Australian teams. Even if the Australian teams have 5, if they want to have 5, good luck to them. They're not going to win anything. But
why do they want 5 though?
They think it's better for their program by giving more players the opportunity to play a top level of game. So we'll just wait and see what happens there. And Super Rugby Australia, the Western Force, they're the Australians' version of the Chiefs. They went down to the Waratahs 28-8, and the Reds, a good win over the Rebels 19-3. The Brumbies had the bye, but they still lead the competition on 18 points from the Reds on 16. And it's a real quagmire for those 2, 3, and 4 with the Reds on 16, the Waratahs 15, and the Rebels on 14. And as I mentioned, the Western Force doing a good impersonation of the Chiefs, not picking up a win yet, just the 2 bonus points. So, it could be an interesting finish to that competition. They've still got 3 rounds to go, with the Brumbies, Reds, Waratahs, and Rebels all within 4 points of each other. So, could be a good finish to that competition. And, of course, the Gallagher Premiership got underway over the weekend. I haven't really had a good look at the scores, but we'll have a good look at those in weeks to come. So that's the rugby for this weekend, and of course no club rugby, so we didn't get to see the mighty Greytown play this week.
No.
So we'll just wait and see what happens next week to see if I think they're going to play the games down here without any spectators. So we'll wait and see what happens there.
Cool. Okay. So what else has been going on?
Yeah, on to some other sport. Poor old Lydia Coe's having a bit of a rough time on the golf course the last 2 weeks. She's had problems in the final round. Last week she blew a 5-shot lead to lose the tournament there, and over the weekend she'd had a good third round to put her in contention for the Scottish Open, but a 3 over par round overnight left her finishing down in 12th. But yet another new coach for Lydia Coe. When's the conveyor belt going to stop?
I just think she needs to enjoy herself. I just think sometimes when I see her, she just doesn't seem like she's having fun, And I can understand if she's been if she's been hitting golf balls every day of her life since she was knee high to a grasshopper, that she's probably getting a bit sick of it, So whether she needs a break or I don't know, mate. But she's still not doing too bad. She's still probably making a very good living and all that. Just because she's not getting over the line, golf is the hardest sport in the world to be consistent at. So, I just hope she's enjoying herself. Really, that's the one thing when I watch Lydia Ko now. I think, mate, you've got nothing to prove to anyone. You've been number one. You've won majors. You've done it for so long. You're only in your mid-20s now. Just enjoy yourself. That's the only advice I can offer her.
And she still looks like the 16-year-old that first first burst onto our screens. Looking at what's going on stateside at the moment, the NBA is starting to get down to the business end of their season.
The playoffs, mate. I've got the playoff tables here if you want to go through this. So the Western Conference, the Lakers are taking on the Blazers. Lakers are number 1 seed. The Rockets taking on the Thunder, the Nuggets and the Jazz, and the Clippers, who are the number 2 seed, taking on the Mavericks. And in the Eastern Conference, the Bucks, the number 1 seed, of course, led by Antetokounmpo. I try to say his name. I'm say the Greek freak. Giannis. I like that. They're taking on the Magic. The Pacers, number 4 seed, taking on the Heat. The Celtics, my team, are taking on the 76ers. And the Raptors are taking on the Nets. It's a playoff. It's just a round-robin table. It's going to be done and dusted really quickly, a lot like the Champions League. So looking forward to watching a little bit of NBA playoff action over the next couple of days.
So you follow the basketball a bit closer than I do. Who's your pick?
Well, I don't want to say the Lakers, but you'd have to say the Lakers. It's a bit like, picking Manchester City in the Champions League. They've just got such a great roster, and I think the shortened season is definitely helping them. They just look so good. On the other, I'm hardly going out on a limb picking the 2 number 1 seeds, the Bucks and the Lakers, but I really think they are the 2 best sides by quite a distance. So I would predict the Bucks and Lakers final. Probably the Lakers winning it, but not going to make me happy. Celtics, Lakers, Celtics all the way. There you go.
Marvelous. Across to baseball now, and it seems funny to say, but we're already third of the way through the shortened baseball season, with just the 60 games in the National League. Miami Marlins still leading the way in the East from the Atlanta Braves. They're even on wins and losses, but Miami slightly ahead on percentage, given that they started their season a bit late and have played quite a few games less than Atlanta. Philadelphia are struggling a wee bit, as are Washington and the Mets. In the Central, Chicago Cubs leading the way. They're 3.5 games ahead of the Milwaukee Brewers. The Cardinals, they've only just started again after a long break with players testing positive for COVID. So they've only played 8 games, as against somebody like the Brewers who have played 20 already. Then you've got the Cincinnati Reds and the Pittsburgh Pirates, who are down the bottom of the Central. In the West, LA Dodgers leading the way as expected, 16-7. They're 2 games ahead of the Colorado Rockies, who were the early surprise leaders in that division. Arizona have lifted themselves off the bottom with a sweep of Colorado in this latest series. They're sitting on 500 percentage with 11 wins and 11 losses. And then San Diego and San Francisco, bottom of the West Division. In the American League, the New York Yankees are a game and a half ahead of the Tampa Bay Rays, who have been playing some good baseball lately.
And they're playing the Boston Red Sox right now, aren't they?
They are currently leading that game 4-1 in the third of that 4-game series, I should say. They play again tomorrow. Then it's Tampa Bay, Baltimore, 2.5 games back. Then it's Toronto, and the poor old Boston Red Sox are languishing at the bottom of the American League East. Just had 6 wins in 21 games, so they're really struggling. They've not really got much pitching this year, especially with Chris Sale going down with Tommy John surgery, so he's out for this year and probably.
Why did they trade Mookie Betts?
Well, they traded Mookie Betts and David Price away to the LA Dodgers. So, I think they're probably already facing the fact that they've given up on this season already, and you'll find with the trade deadline at the end of this month, they'll probably be getting rid of a few players off their books. One that is being talked about is JD Martinez, who's a superstar in their team. They owe him something like $40 million over the next couple of years. So he'll be possibly one that could go on the trading block. He's got an opt-out clause at the end of this year, so anything could happen there. And Toronto are struggling too on 7-11. So in the Central, Minnesota Twins have been playing some good baseball. They lead that from the Cleveland Indians, followed by Chicago White Sox have been playing some good baseball, although they just got swept by the St. Louis Cardinals over the weekend. So, and that was the Cardinals' first action since the opening weekend. Detroit Tigers and Kansas City Royals languishing at the bottom of the Central. In the West, Oakland are the surprise team there. They've got a 4.5 game lead over the cheating Houston Astros. And there's the Texas Rangers, Los Angeles Angels in fourth place in the West, despite the fact that new dad Mike Trout, since his son was born, has hit 9 home runs. Which isn't guy. And your Seattle Mariners struggling again, sitting bottom of.
I'm used to it, mate. I'm used to it.
As I remember when I was at Safeco, what was then Safeco Field, a number of years ago, and we went on the tour, and the tour guide told us a joke, and the joke was, "What's the difference between New York hot dogs and Seattle hot dogs?" And the answer is, you can't get Seattle hot dogs in October.
Oh God! They should be telling that in New York, not in Seattle. Don't laugh at you. Don't laugh at your own misfortune.
Yeah,
we'll get back there, mate. Right. We'll get back there.
Well,
all right. That's our American Sports Watch.
Yes. Time to move on to the Greyfriars Motel Top 5. And this is your selection this week, so I'll let you introduce it.
It is, mate. It is. It's nice and simple. I actually had to ask you whether we'd done this before because I can't believe we haven't done it. Basically, our top 5 favourite All Blacks. So it's cast the net long and wide, and it doesn't have to be, it could just be a one-test All Black that you absolutely love. It doesn't have to play the most or score the most points or do anything like that, just All Blacks that you love. So we'll kick it off with your number 5.
My number 5, he was All Black number 944, and he was a good product of Christchurch Boys High School, and his name is Andrew Mertens. Mertz played 70 tests for the All Blacks between 1995 and 2004, and throughout that time was considered by many as the clown prince of the team, while at the same time producing outstanding efforts on the field. In his 70 tests, Mertz scored 967 points, holding the all-time scoring record until fellow Cantabrian, a certain Dan Carter, came along. Mertens debuted for the All Blacks in 1995 and made an immediate impact, scoring 28 points against Canada in his test debut. At the time, was the highest points total ever by a player making his international debut. Sadly, he also featured in the team that played the 1995 Rugby World Cup final against South Africa and came within inches of claiming victory for New Zealand with a drop goal attempt just veering just wide of the posts at the end of regulation time. A supposed drop in form combined with injuries saw him miss out on the All Blacks World Cup squad in 2003, and critics of coach John Mitchell at the time felt New Zealand's chances were dealt a blow without the choice of an experienced goal kicker, an area in which New Zealand could not compete in the semi-final against Australia. Nonetheless, a strong 2004 Super 12 campaign saw him called back to the All Blacks, but missed out the following year when the Lions toured and Carter exploded onto the international rugby scene with 3 scintillating performances, effectively ending Mertens' international career. He continued playing in Europe till his retirement from the game in 2013 and is still involved in the game as a commentator, and he acted as the Waratahs kicking coach in 2014. Of course, he's now based in Sydney. Andrew Mertens is my number 5 favourite All Black.
Yeah, I had him as an honourable mention. I love Mertz. I think he was a great guy on and off the field. Really funny guy too. And I always love it when he's in the commentary box. You always know you're going to get something a little bit off the wall, don't you? When Andrew Mertz is commentating.
I think during his playing career, he actually warmed up for his commentating because, according to a number of former All Blacks, he actually used to commentate while he was playing. During the game.
Marshall the Mertens out.
Yeah, and another funny story I read in, I think it was Mike Brewer's book, when Mertz first came into the All Black team, Laurie Mains was the coach. And, of course, Laurie Mains, very serious man, of course. And while Laurie Mains and the captain and the other coaches were just organising the training session, Mertz decided he'd try and move things along a bit quicker. And his second training session for the All Blacks, strolled up to the senior group and looked at Laurie and said, "Come on, Laurie, when are we going to get underway?" And then ran off very quickly.
He must have been a nightmare. Poor old Laurie. All right, well, my number 5, this one is dedicated to my dad because I went through all the All Blacks. I was like, man, it's so hard to find 5. So this one's my dad. He was my dad's favourite player, and I thought I'll go back a little bit. The guy's name was Donald Barry Clark.
DB Clark.
Absolutely. He played 89 times for the All Blacks from 1956 to 1964, and he was best known for his phenomenal goal-kicking ability that earned him the nickname The Boot. Don Clark. He was first selected to play rugby for Waikato at the age of just 17 years old.
Yep.
In 1951, and in 1956 my dad was at this game, he helped the Waikato side to a 14-10 victory over the touring Springbok side at Rugby Park in Hamilton. This helped his cause in being selected to play in the 3rd All Black Test match of the Springbok tour, and over his entire All Black career he scored 781 points, which was a hell of a lot of points for those times, a record that stood for 24 years until it was broken by Grant Fox in 1988. He also had 4 brothers, Ian, Douglas, Brian, and Graham, and they all represented Waikato at some stage. Only once did they all appear for Waikato in the same match. Can you imagine that? 5 brothers all playing for the same team. That was in 1961 in Te Araha. He also played 27 first-class games of cricket for Northern Districts. Did you know that? That's really interesting. Right-arm opening bowler, and his best figures, 8 for 37 against Central in 1963. What a player he was. He also kicked the goal from over 60 metres. It's legendary, from Rugby Park into the wind. The guy had the biggest kick on him of anyone ever. Don Clark, the boot. He's my number 5.
Absolutely. A great All Black.
Yeah.
Speaking of great All Blacks, my number 4 on the list of my top 5 favourite All Blacks is one Richard Hugh McCaw, commonly known as Richie. You may have heard of him. Captained the All Blacks in 110 out of his 148 Test matches, won 2 Rugby World Cups. He's the second most capped Test rugby player of all time. Was only just beaten earlier on this year by the Welsh captain, Alan
Wyn Davies.
So, yeah, that one.
Yeah, Alan Wyn Davies. Yeah, that guy.
McCaw was the first All Black to reach 100 Test caps and the first rugby union player to win 100 Tests. He's the, as I say, second most capped player in rugby union history with 148 caps, having overtaken Brian O'Driscoll's record in 2015. McCaw has also equalled the record for the most appearances at the Rugby World Cup with Jason Leonard, the English prop. And McCaw predominantly played on the open side flanker with the All Blacks, Crusaders and Canterbury teams, but also played as a blindside flanker and number 8. During McCaw's career, Canterbury won the NPC, later the Mitre 10 Cup, 5 times, and the Crusaders won 4 Super Rugby titles. In addition to winning 2 World Cups, the All Blacks won 7 Tri-Nations titles, completed 3 successful Grand Slam tours, and won the Bledisloe Cup 8 times. He made his debut in 2001 for the Crusaders and was selected for the All Blacks end-of-year tour the same year, despite having played only 8 minutes of Super 12 rugby. His debut for New Zealand was against Ireland, where he was awarded man of the match and became a regular selection after that, only missing a few games due to recurring concussions. In 2004, he was appointed captain, leading them at the 2007 World Cup. After their elimination in the quarterfinals as captains, he came under criticism, along with the coaches, but he was retained and eventually led the team to consecutive titles in 2011 and 15, becoming one of only 20 players to have won 2 Rugby Union World Cups. In addition to his All Black feats, he played 145 times for the Crusaders and 34 times for Canterbury. The master of grabbing the ball at the breakdown, Richie McCaw.
Yeah, he was fairly handy. Yeah, you can't really say much more, mate. You went through so what didn't he do? You know?
Yeah, exactly.
He hasn't been Prime Minister
yet.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, Richie McCaw. No, I can't. You basically said it all. The guy was just a master. I mean, a couple of great documentaries about him sort of offered a little bit of insight into him, especially his early days on the farm. He was just a country boy, wasn't he? And he just I think the thing that came through with both those documentaries that I've seen on him is just his absolute passion for the game. He always wanted to be playing. He never, just had such a desire to stay on the field. And, and also his match intelligence, we all hate people that are good at everything, and he's just good at everything, He's just he's intelligent, he's got good looks, he can play sport, he's bright, he's got money. Yeah, shut up. Anyway, Richie.
Even his wife plays sport for New Zealand.
I know. Just have kids already.
Yeah.
Yeah, Richie McCaw, what a player. Okay, well, my number 4 is also a former All Black captain, Wayne Thomas Bucks Shelford. He was also a coach, of course, captain the All Blacks in the 80s, and he was also credited with revising. We talked about him during our Tough Men list. Of course, he was also credited with revitalising the performance of the traditional Kamiti Haka when he first made the team. He made his Test debut for the All Blacks in a 19-7 victory against France in Toulouse, and he was then a notable victim in the infamous Battle of Nantes in the second Test. Roughly 20 minutes into the match, he was caught at the bottom of a rather aggressive ruck, and an errant French boot found its way onto Shelford's groin, somehow ripping his scrotum and leaving one testicle hanging free.
Hang on, let me just cross my legs here.
I know, every time I read this. He also lost 4 teeth in the process, and he went back on the field later on and was knocked out, watched the game and the rest, and can't remember any of it. That's how tough this guy was. In 1987, the first Rugby World Cup was held in New Zealand, and he played in 5 of the 6 All Blacks games. He was a member of the team that won the final, 29-9. After that, he took over as the captain. He first captained the side in the 1987 tour of Japan. And during his captaincy from 87 to 1990, the All Blacks did not lose one game. They drew one test against Australia in 1988. And in 1990, the selectors decided that he was not up to standard, and he was controversially dropped after the test series against Scotland. And after this, the fans started saying, "Bring back Buck." They're still doing it to this day. The guy is an absolute dead-set legend. Buck Shelford, my number 4.
Yes, fine man indeed, Buck. And plenty of rugby players on the field lost an argument with him, especially one Welsh lock in the 1987 Rugby World Cup. But we don't condone that sort of thing.
No. We certainly don't.
People's fists. My number 3.
Okay, your number 3.
My number 3. We mentioned him briefly before when we were talking about Aaron Smith. My number 3, Dave Trapper Loveridge. Played 24 tests for the All Blacks between 1978 and 1985, plus 30 other matches, totalling 54 games for the All Blacks. Captained the All Blacks in the 1980 Tour of Australia in the absence of Graham Murray and Andy Dalton. Loveridge was most renowned for his performance in the second test against the touring British Lions in 1983 at Athletic Park in Wellington, a game that I was at, actually, and absolutely froze my nuts off sitting in the at the northern,
not hard, to be fair.
At the northern end with a howling southerly blowing into us. According to rugby writer Lindsay Knight for the New Zealand Rugby Museum, in difficult conditions, Loveridge was the perfect complement to an All Black pack which, battling into a gale, took charge of the ultra-confident Lions in the second spell. Loveridge displayed every aspect of the halfback's art, passing accurately, kicking effectively, and running with judgment. In a game where he took every correct option, he then scampered over for the match's only try in the All Blacks' 9-0 win. Even the most exacting judges declared Loveridge had produced one of the greatest displays of all time and agreed with the assessment of All Black coach Bryce Rope that this had been Trapper's test. He played 136 matches for Taranaki between 1974 and 1986 and 2 matches for Auckland in 1973. He suffered a serious knee injury in 1984 and never regained his full abilities, eventually retiring in 1986 after touring South Africa with the Cavaliers, and still lives on his pig farm just outside Inglewood in the Naki. Dave Trapper Loveridge, magnificent halfback, and my memories of that test in 1983 are still pretty vivid, as if it was yesterday. Loveridge was just amazing that day, and he'd taken over as the All Blacks halfback a few years earlier from another good halfback that we didn't actually mention.
Donaldson?
Mark Donaldson, Bullet, from Good Man or Two Man. But yeah, Dave Loveridge, just an outstanding player, and my third favourite All Black of all time.
Wow. No, he was a great halfback. Used to love Trapper, man. He was such a good player. It was just, once again, cut short by injury. Felt sorry for him. He could have played so much more. But yeah, he was a hell of a halfback. And I always remember him and Morey. We had Morey, Mixted, and Loveridge. And those three around the fringes, they just did the damage, didn't they? They were great players. Love Trapper Loveridge. Okay, my number 3. He's a knight of the realm, this one, mate. He's a knight of the realm, so I'm not the only one who fancies him as a rugby player. So does the Queen. Sir Michael Nico Jones is my number 3. Of course, he was absolutely amazing open-side flanker initially. He was named Rugby World Magazine's 3rd best All Black of the 20th century after Colin Meads and Sean Fitzpatrick. And John Hart, who first selected him for Auckland, called him the almost perfect rugby player. After one cap for Samoa in the British tour with the New Zealand Barbarians in 87, he first played for New Zealand in the first game of the inaugural 1987 Rugby World Cup, and he scored the second try of the tournament, played 4 games, including the final, and went on to win the competition. Of course, he famously never played on Sundays because of his religious beliefs, and his career was blighted by injuries, notably 2 serious knee injuries in 89 and 97. The second one from which they said he would never walk again, let alone play rugby again. And he also had a terrible broken jaw in 1993. Due to this, he only played 55 international games during a period when New Zealand played almost 90 internationals, even though he was usually first choice whenever he was fit. And of course, with his strong Christian beliefs, he refused to play on Sundays as well, although he was selected for the 87 and 91 All Black World Cup squads, even though he missed 2 or 3 games in each of those tournaments due to his religious beliefs. He was omitted from the 95 squad as he was unavailable on Sundays. And he was once asked how a Christian such as himself could be such a uncompromising tackler. In reply, he quoted a phrase from the Bible: "It is better to give than to receive." I absolutely love that.
I remember that one.
It's one of the better quotes of all time. A player who reinvented himself because of injury, from a powerful, quick and athletic number 7 to a more gnarly, intelligent and uncompromising number 6, and one of the nicest men to have ever worn the black jersey. Look out as well for his son, Nico. He is a prodigious talent, absolute prodigy for St. Peter's College. He's bound to be an All Black as well. Michael Jones is my number 3.
A fine selection there, and yes, he was on my list of honourable mentions as well. And you mentioned in there that he's a lovely, humble man. I can attest to that. I met him when I was working in radio back in the 90s. I met him when he was in Wanganui for a trial match, I think it was. And then he came back, and I interviewed him, and he came back a year later to play for New Zealand. I think they called them New Zealand A or something at the time, against France in Wanganui. And I wandered off to the hotel with my microphone there to do some interviews and to meet the team as they came back from training. And Michael walked in, looked at me, and a big smile came across his face, put his hand out, and he said, "Ian, it's lovely to see you again. How are you?" And
Isn't it amazing?
And he's just a lovely, lovely man. I have met him in latter years too at Eden Park. He stopped to have a chat. He didn't remember me that time, but that was about 20 years previous. So, but yeah, just a wonderful man. Will stop and talk to anybody. And Michael Jones, a great, great player.
Yeah, great player. Absolutely loved him as a footballer, and he's so softly spoken, isn't he? So softly spoken. Yes. But on the field, my God, that guy, he was an absolute, he used to cut people in half, didn't he?
Yep, he certainly did. Right, my number 2
Go on.
Is another great All Black flanker of the past, and his name is Graham Neil Keith Murray. Was one of the great captains in the late 1970s through to the early 1980s, and played a total of 61 matches, 57 as captain for the All Blacks, including 21 tests until 1982. He was first selected for the All Blacks in 1976, captaining a second-string New Zealand team that toured South America. He was selected again for the All Blacks against the touring British Lions in 1977 and captained the side to France later that year, replacing Tane Norton as captain. Murray captained the All Blacks on their historic Grand Slam tour of Britain and Ireland in 1978, but in 1981, Murray made himself unavailable for selection during the controversial tour of New Zealand by the Springboks. He returned as captain later that year for the tour of Romania and France. Born in Taranaki, he captained his province and attended Opunake High School and was in the first 15 before he attended New Plymouth Boys High School, which he also got into the first 15, but strangely never captained it. After his playing days, he coached the Wellington NPC side from 1998 to 99, before moving on to coach the Hurricanes from 2000 to 2002. In the 1981 Queen's Birthday Honours, Murray was made a member of the Order of the British Empire for services to rugby. Graham Murray, magnificent All Black captain, and I still vividly remember in 1980 him scoring a great try against Wales.
Me too.
At what was then Farms Park.
Oh, me too, mate. That was I was just going to say that, bring up that memory. That beautiful part where he went around and he did that little dummy at the end. And they all bought it, and he just went, "I'm going for the corner." They all thought he was going to cut inside. It was an absolutely great try. I still remember it too. And once again, a man of integrity and morals, and just, of course, him not playing in that 81 tour. I mean, it's easy today to look back and go, "Oh, yeah, well, someone's made themselves unavailable." It happens all the time, but that was a massive call back in the day for him to, as the All Black captain, for him to say, "No, I'm not going to do it on moral grounds." And then, of course, he didn't go on the Cavaliers tour as well. He was offered a place on that tour, decided he didn't want to go. Man, just such great scruples that guy had, a real leader. Loved him on the field, off the field. great pick, mate. I'm glad you picked him because he was in my honourable mentions. You can't fit them all in. So
Quite
let's
right,
go for
quite right.
my number 2. I had to have him on here. Absolutely had to. You knew he was going to be on here, mate. Jonah Tale-Lomu is my number 2. He was the youngest ever All Black when he played his first international, 1994, at the age of 19 years and 45 days. He, of course, was a massive man, played on the wing, 63 caps, 37 tries, and was regarded as the first global superstar of rugby. He was inducted into the Rugby Hall of Fame in 2007 and the IRB Hall of Fame in 2011. Of course, he burst onto the international rugby scene in 1994 at that Hong Kong Sevens tournament. I still remember the tries he scored at that tournament. We were like, what the hell have we got here? He'd scored tries from his own goal line. He'd run through the whole team. We were just like, my gosh, this is just something we've never seen before. And wasn't shortly after that, of course, he went to the 1995 World Cup and just played out of his skin, scored so many tries. Of course, scored those 4 tries against England. We lost that final, but he absolutely helped elevate the sport and basically helped take the sport professional. Of course, it turned professional just after that. And he also shares the Rugby World Cup all-time try-scoring record, which I didn't know. Only played 2 World Cups, scored 15 tries in 2 World Cups. Phenomenal. And surprisingly, never scored a try against the Springboks, which is phenomenal. Quite crazy that he never got across the line against the Springboks. He was diagnosed with nephrotic syndrome, a serious kidney disorder, in 1995, and the disease had a significant impact on his playing career and wider life. By 2003, he was on dialysis. 2004, he had a kidney transplant. He then tried to come back, couldn't play. We didn't really know when we saw him, even when we saw him and we were gasping, that he wasn't even at his best then. Imagine what he could have been. The guy was just, he was just phenomenal. And then, of course, he died unexpectedly, 18th of November 2015, after suffering a heart attack associated with his kidney condition. Rest in peace, legend. Another one who gave so much of himself to the game and the fans. A bloody nice guy to boot as well. Jonah Lomu, he's my number 2.
Yes, absolutely, and as you say, a really nice guy. At that same time when I met Michael Jones, Jonah was in that team on their second visit, and I remember shaking his hand, and his hand basically covered from my hand about halfway up my lower arm. His hands were absolutely
he was a
massive,
big man,
and it was no surprise that he could carry the ball in just one hand, a la Colin Meads. So, brilliant man, brilliant player. And who can forget those 4 tries against England in that World Cup semi-final when England thought they were going to beat us to get the final, but Jonah just absolutely destroyed them. And of course, who can forget the Keith Quinn? Love
it.
Quite
okay,
right.
We're at number 1 time.
Number 1
Come on,
time.
who's your number 1 All Black?
I hope I'm not stealing your thunder here.
I think you might be.
But I just mentioned his name briefly, and it is, of course, Colin Pinetree Meads. Played for the All Blacks from 1959 through to 1971. The great man played 55 tests for the All Blacks and still arguably remains New Zealand's greatest ever rugby player. In addition to the 55 tests, he played another 78 matches, accruing a total of 133 games in the black jersey, along with 139 games for his beloved King Country. Nicknamed Pine Tree due to his physical presence, he was an icon within New Zealand rugby and was named the country's Player of the Century at the NZRFU Awards in 1999. He is a member of both the World Rugby Hall of Fame and the New Zealand Sports Hall of Fame, and was a member of the International Rugby Hall of Fame before its merger with the World Rugby Hall in 2014. The International Rugby Hall of Fame considers him to have been the most famous forward in world rugby throughout the 1960s. Meads was considered by many to be a tough, uncompromising, loyal and humble person. At 1.92 metres or 6 foot 3.5 inches in the old money and weighing 100 kilos or 220 pounds, he was a similar size to many other players of the era. He had a large physical presence, though, being very strong and having a high level of fitness, which, of course, he built up on his Tikawiti farm with Brother Stan. who also played for the All Blacks. In 1971, New Year's Honours, Meads was appointed an MBE for services to rugby. He was appointed a Distinguished Companion of the New Zealand Order of Merit for services to rugby in the community. In the 2001 New Year Honours. In 2009, Special Honours following the restoration of titular honours by the New Zealand Government. Meads accepted redesignation as a Knight Companion of the New Zealand Order of Merit, becoming Sir Colin Meads.
Sir Cole.
June 2017, during the then ongoing British and Irish Lions tour, a statue of Meads was unveiled in the Tikawiti's town centre. Despite his ongoing battle with cancer, Meads attended and spoke at the unveiling. Sadly, Pinetree finally succumbed to the cancer just 2 months later. Colin Pinetree Meads. And a little anecdote that an old friend of mine told me many, many years ago, that there's a lot of things that relate to Colin Meads around the number 5. Of course, he wore the number 5 throughout his playing career. Colin has 5 letters. Meads has 5 letters. And, of course, he played 55 tests for New Zealand. And then, of course, he married Verna. How many letters in the name Verna? 5.
And both my first name and second name both have 5. So I'm pretty good company there, aren't I, mate? Pretty good company.
Just add an E on to the end of your middle name.
True. Oh, mate, I can't argue with that. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, before Richie came along, he was undoubtedly our greatest ever All Black. And, I had him in my honourable mentions. I'm glad I didn't put him at number 1 because you got to tell me, everything about him. I love that man. I met him a couple of times. Once again, massive hands. The guy used to be able to grasp a rugby ball with one hand. He used to run. First person I ever saw run with the rugby ball with one hand was Colin Meads. And just, he was a funny man as well. He was really funny. His after dinner speeches. And so I've been to a couple of dinners where he's spoken, and especially once the dinner is underway and Colin's had a couple of beers. My God, that man could drink as well. Also, another story about him. He was also the first All Black to ever be sent off in a test. And I remember his daughter said that they found the diary from that test match. Remember that? Yeah. And they went to the page of that whole tour, and they went to the page of when he got sent off, and they found the date, and all it said was got sent off, got drunk.
Yes, of course. And that diary is, I think it's on display at the Meads Museum in Tikawiti, which I have been past a couple of times, but haven't really had time to stop and have a good look in there, but certainly will one day.
Okay, so my number 1, mate. My number 1, Christian Matthias Cullen. He was born on the 12th of February 1976. He's a fullback for the Hurricanes and, of course, Manawatu, Wellington, and later Munster. And he was nicknamed the Pai Kokoriki Express. And my God, he was an express-laden player. In 1996, he played in the first ever Super 12 game, the Hurricanes and the Blues, and he scored 7 tries in 9 matches in that first Super Rugby season. At the 1996 World Sevens competition in Hong Kong, he scored 18 tries, including 7 in 1 match. I remember this one that he scored from inside his own goal when he beat all 7 players. Absolutely phenomenal. At the later that year, he was selected as an All Black. He scored 7 tries in his first 2 Test matches, a hat-trick on debut against Samoa, and 4 tries against Scotland. Later injuries robbed him of his pace and his step, but he continued to play at a high level. Was treated rather poorly by the All Black coaching staff. Once again, John Mitchell decided to play him out of position and put him on the bench and do all sorts of things. So he just decided to sort of pull out and go overseas. By the time he retired, he had scored 46 Test tries and 58 tests. That's how prolific he was. He's the 9th highest try scorer in international rugby. The records go on for ages. He's the All Blacks' 2nd highest try scorer in the Tri Nations with 16, second to only Richie McCaw. Would you believe that? Richie McCaw is the top try scorer. He was the first player to score a try in every Tri Nations test in one season. New Zealand's 2nd most capped test fullback. At the time of retirement, he was the leading try scorer with 46. He scored over 150 tries while playing in New Zealand. And he's the 3rd highest try scorer in Super Rugby with 56 tries behind Joe Roff and Doug Howlett. the greatest runner and stepper I have ever seen with a rugby ball. He was phenomenal, and he is my number one favourite All Black of all time, Christian Cullen. What a player.
A fine selection indeed. And his try against Australia down at the Carisbrook will be long remembered as probably one of the greatest ever tries ever scored by an All Black. His ability to keep pace when he changed direction was just unnerving to defenders.
Yeah.
A lot of people, when they did a sidestep, they had to slow down to do it, but Cully just exploded out of the sidestep and seemed to pick up pace as he went along. Yeah, just an amazing player, and he's certainly on my list of honourable mentions.
I was going to say.
Another fullback that he took over from, a man that you managed to meet a few times.
Glenn Osborne.
In your career, Glenn Osborne.
Super Oz, bro.
Yep,
I was so prolific fullback.
Also on my list of honourable mentions is his cousin Bill Osborne, who played alongside another honourable mention, the great Bruce Robertson, the county's centre. Incredible player, Bruce Robertson, and he was very unlucky to miss out on my top five. Another unlucky to miss out on my top five, one of my favourite All Blacks when I first started watching the game was the nuggety little winger Grant Batty from the Wairarapa.
Love Grant Batty.
He was a classic.
Love Grant Batty.
Some others on my list, you've mentioned them, Michael Jones, Buck Shelford. I've also got Mike Brewer. He was a good player in the day, led, of course, captain the All Blacks in his first test, the Baby Blacks in 1986, after when the Cavaliers were away. I've got Sam Whitelock, Ian Kirkpatrick, Corey Jane. I used to love watching Corey Jane play, and he's also quite a hard case as well. Who could not put out a list of rugby players without mentioning Dan Carter, of course. And the last on my list of honourable mentions is a man that went by the name of Hicka the Hooker from Nongataha. Hicka Reid was a magnificent player from the early 1980s. So, yes, quite a list of players there we've gone through, and I'm amazed we went through our top fives without crossovers. And of course, I have failed to mention Jonah Lomu there. He was also on my list of honourable mentions, and of course, you talked about him in great detail.
Yeah, I had some honourable mentions that you mentioned. Obviously, Colin Meads, a couple of others. I know I had Andrew Mertens, Glenn Osborne, Graham Morey. A couple of others. Sonny Bill Williams, absolutely love Sonny Bill. I know that people will be out to the tall poppies will be saying, I mentioned Jonah and Sonny Bill. Yep. Well, knock me down. He's an amazing player. I absolutely love Sonny Bill. Sean Fitzpatrick, can't mention a list without Fitzy. He was our leader for so many years and just used to wind the opposition up. So just for that. Tana Umanga, love Tana. Absolutely great player. Love Tana Umanga. Jeff Wilson, of course, Goldie. Love Jeff Wilson and that first test of his against Scotland. Who will ever forget it? And of course, Ian Jones, the Carmo kid. Love Carmo. Loved Carmo, man. Great All Black as well. You could go on forever, though, couldn't we? We love all the All Blacks.
Oh, absolutely.
There you go. That's a selection of some of our favourites. And we're going to talk some more All Blacks now, aren't we? Yeah. Go on.
Right, well, so we're going to do the backs this week, and then next week we'll focus on the forwards. We've got a list here. We've both got them. Just going through each position. I guess I'll start off with the fullbacks, then you can do the wingers.
Go on.
And so on. So starting off with the fullbacks, I think there's probably 4 contenders in there. There's Will Jordan from the Crusaders, Damien McKenzie from the Chiefs, and of course the Barrett brothers, one from the Hurricanes, one from the Blues, Geordie and Bowden Barrett. So I've put in my selection, I've got Bowden Barrett as my fullback, which probably gives away who I've got at first 5. But yeah, that's my selection. How did you?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I've probably got Bowden as well, but I think Geordie's running him really close, mate. I really do. I think he's got a better kicking game, and he's just been on fire since the lockdown. So I would say that Geordie's pushing him closest. I wouldn't have Damien McKenzie anywhere near it at the moment. Will Jordan, he's a great option off the bench. Great utility. Maybe just a little bit too soon for him. It's when you're up against the top rugby player in the world. Probably Bowden. But I think Geordie is probably his closest contender.
Yes, I did leave David Havili off that, given that he's suffering from some injury problems at the moment. But if fit, he definitely would have been in that discussion as well. So if you want to go on to the wingers now, who are the contenders?
Okay. So we've got the Crusaders wingers, Sevu Reece and George Bridge, of course, both of them the incumbents. Rico Ione, of course, from the Blues, who's played pretty well. Caleb Clark, who's been absolutely on fire since the beginning, and Braden Enor, who's been everywhere, all over the field in his performances lately. Who have you picked? I don't think there'll be any surprises from you, will there?
I've gone for the incumbents, the Crusaders pair of Reece and Bridge. Is there any change from you?
Yeah, I've got George Bridge. I like him, but I've got Caleb Clark because I just don't. I want a bigger man. I like Sevu Reece. I like him, but I just think you need a big guy. You need a big guy on the wing. And George Bridge, I mean, I could not pick him. Sevu Reece, I mean, great player. I mean, he hasn't done anything wrong, but Caleb Clark's a comer, man, and he's going to be there for the next 10 years. So I'd have Caleb Clark in there.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yes, he's had a good season, Caleb Clark. And certainly, if not this year, he is definitely a future All Black, no doubt about that. Looking at centre and second five, I thought, because you've got, at least three of those can play both positions of the contenders that I've got. You've got Anton Leonard-Brown from the Chiefs, Jack Goodhue from the Crusaders. I've put Ngani Laumapi in. He did break his arm about 3 weeks ago, is probably going to be in contention once the team is picked. I've also got Rieko Ioane and Braden Enor in as other contenders. I think they're probably about it. I've gone for pretty stable, really. I've gone for Anton Leonard-Brown and Jack Goodhue in the midfield there. Probably Ngani Laumapi. I'm lucky to miss out on that. Rieko Ioane did play some good games at centre early in the season, but tended to fade a bit towards the latter part of the season when the Blues weren't going forward as much as they had done in those early rounds. So, Leonard-Brown and Goodhue for me.
Yeah, I don't think it can look too far past both of those guys. They just don't make errors, do they? They're both just solid players, and that's what you want in your midfield. Ngani Laumapi probably would have made it if he hadn't got injured. He was just looking untackleable at some stages there. Just a great player. Rico, I agree with you about him. He's blowing hot and cold, and he does seem to sort of go missing near the end of the game. So maybe he's just got a little bit of remedial work to do. Braden Enor, great player to have on your bench because he can play basically anywhere. So I can't argue with Anton Leonard-Brown and Jack Goodhue, mate. I think those are good selections. Let's go first five. This is a real tough one because the top two contenders, of course, are Richie Mo'unga and Beauden Barrett. You've also got Aaron Cruden, who's come back and has been very solid for the Chiefs. Josh Ioane, who has been playing very, very well for the Highlanders. O'Terry Black, maybe an outside go. And Damien McKenzie, who's been playing mostly at fullback, but is a contender at first five as well. Who you got?
I've gone for Richie Mo'unga. I think, in my eyes and a lot of people's eyes, I think he is probably the MVP of Super Rugby Aotearoa. I think he's just been outstanding, and he showed a lot of different things in his game, especially, you look back to that game against the Blues in Christchurch, the quick kickoff and and that sort of thing. He just has got so much variation in his game. And, I just think he's playing outstanding rugby at the moment and doesn't seem to be doing anything wrong. So that was why I went for our Richie.
Yep, you can say a lot of things about me, mate. You can't say I'm biased because I'm going for Richie Mo'unga as well. I mean, I'm picking a Crusaders first five over an All Black and Blues first five, but I just don't think Beauden Barrett, he's played more at fullback than he has at first five, and Richie Mo'unga, what's he done wrong? I can't even think of. I mean, you can count the errors all season on one hand. He's just so good. He's probably the best first five in the world at the moment. I mean, based on current form. I just don't know how you can go beyond him. And another guy from Canterbury called Richie, so you got to have him in the team, don't you?
Quite right. Well, I think we pretty much covered the halfback
situation
earlier on, but just to
game over.
just to
Trevor Loveridge, of course. Trevor Loveridge at halfback. That's right, isn't it?
just to dot the I's and cross the T's. I think really only 3 contenders: Aaron Smith, TJ Perenara, and Brad Weber, who had a good season for the Chiefs. Only one pick in that group in my eyes: Aaron Smith. And
who would you have as your backup then?
TJ Perenara.
Yeah, I suppose the thing is TJ offers a different sort of game style, doesn't he? So he offers you that other thing, whereas Brad Weber is more in the Aaron Smith mold. I love Brad Weber as a halfback, but he's much the same as Aaron Smith. So I think if you have TJ on your bench, you can change the game if you need to. So I'd probably go along with that as well.
In those contenders, I purposely left off the 2 Crusaders halfbacks. I don't think either of them, Bryn Hall or Mitchell Drummond, just has the complete game to really go close to any of those other 3. I mean, again, they're 2 very different types of halfbacks. Bryn Hall has got great pass, but his running around the base and his kicking is probably not as great. Whereas Mitchell Drummond, he's very much in the Justin Marshall type of player, very strong player. Probably his past maybe just lets him down a wee bit in that. In regards to the reserves, I've gone for Geordie Barrett as my full cover for the outside. Well, pretty much he can cover any back from first 5 out to fullback. I've put Nani Laumapi in there just because of the fact that the All Blacks probably aren't going to play for at least another month. So I've plugged for Nani Laumapi in there, even though he can only really cover second 5. He could probably go on the wing if need be. And TJ Perenara is my backup halfback. And, of course, he can also play first 5 as well, which he's done for Hurricanes.
So, those are good back reserves. I'd probably go – it depends on who I selected at fullback. So, if I went for Bowden, I'd go for Geordie. If I went for Geordie, I'd go for Bowden. So, one of those 2 is one of the back reserves. Probably, could you select Will Jordan as another back reserve? Because, I mean, would that cover just about everything? Or,
well,
I don't know. Because
it would depend if you had a
midfielder. You need a midfielder, don't you? So, Geordie could play midfield? I don't know.
The thing is, you've got Leonard Brown and Good who can alternate. Plus, you've got George Bridge can play at centre as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Maybe you could pick maybe Rico Ioane. It'd be Rico Ioane, Will Jordan. It'd be one of those 2, just because they cover a lot of positions. They've both been playing really well. Both got tons of pace, and then it's just the halfback position. Like you say, TJ's probably the option there if you don't want to. If you, I still like Brad Weber, but probably a bit too samey. So there you go. So I think we've got Bowden Barrett as our fullback. I'll go with you. George Bridge and either Sever Reece or Caleb Clark on the wings. Anton Leonard-Brown and Jack Goodhue as our centres. Richie as our first 5 and Aaron Smith as our halfback. That's a pretty handy backline, mate.
Yep, reasonably predictable. And, of course, we'll have a crack at naming some forwards next week. It'll be interesting. I think we'll see a few more Highlanders and possibly a couple of Chiefs making their way into those selections as well. So we'll see what happens there.
Absolutely.
So, what are you on your high horse about this week?
Oh yeah. Okay, I've got to say something, don't I? Okay, so
you don't have to.
Okay, let's come off the mountaintop, shall I? Hey, when the pandemic first hit and professional sports around the globe went into hibernation, I was at a loss, and I know you were too, mate. Sports to me is a godsend away from the banalities of life. It tells crazy, unpredictable stories of glorious uncertainty that couldn't exist in fiction because no one would believe them. What would I do with sports in my life, especially with all this time on my hands? I'm at home and I can't go out and I have no sport. The very thought made me very depressed. Well, we're back at level 3 again. And I did find other things to entertain me. The first time my life was locked down, I guess I really stopped to appreciate how much I really want, love, and need sport in my life, both for my sanity and for those who spend time with me. If I don't get my sport, I'm a grumpy man. What I didn't foresee or understand initially, at least though, was how important my part was as a fan in regaining the essence of sport. When sport finally did begin to re-emerge, I, along with all the sporting tragics, was stoked things were finally getting back to normal and our sporting fix would finally be replenished after so long away. Yet it wasn't quite the same, was it? It was some sports had abbreviated or shortened their seasons due to time constraints, that others tried new rules or regulations, new ways to fill rosters, new ways to officiate or broadcast even to add extra appeal. However, the primary difference between sport before and the sport after was nothing to do with the players, officials, rules, or the sport taking place itself. It was simply who wasn't there. And it was us, the fans. We weren't there. The lack of crowds is something that the broadcasters obviously foresaw, because they tried everything to disguise the fact that the television viewer had no fans at the ground. They've done canned cheering and chanting. They've placed digital cardboard cutouts of fans on the sideline, all in a vain attempt to show the sport is normal. We're living in a normal time. There's nothing unnormal about the sport. The lack of fans has also affected the sport on the field itself, with certain types of sports, especially like Australian rules, where they've got big stadiums and the balls going up and down. Cricket, where empty stadiums just don't seem to really work. And the broadcast atmosphere in the sport failing to raise itself to any level of excitement, regardless of what occurs on the field. So when Super Rugby Aotearoa kicked off with full stands of spectators, it was not really a surprise that the sport on the field elevated itself beyond our expectations. The players lifted themselves, the crowds came back, they were ready to party, make noise, and support like never before. And the spectacle, well, it was spectacular, and we were the envy of every country in the world. Now we've been locked down again. And that saw the cancellation of the Blues Crusaders game, the game that we all wanted to see more than any other. And the Hurricanes and the Highlanders play in front of an empty stadium. The point was hit home to me once again, even though the game wasn't so bad. But this time it was hit home with a giant sledgehammer, with no celebrations, no cheering, no booing, no whistling, no clapping, no standing ovations, no gasps, no sledging, no singing. Is it really sport, or is it just exercise with points? Live fans enhance the jeopardy of the moment and create an atmosphere of sporting theatre that in turn brings other fans on board and helps to elevate our sporting heroes on the field to perform those great feats of endurance, speed, and strength that we all love. So I've been enlightened over this pandemic to the importance of fans at live sporting events. It's like the old saying goes, if a tree falls in the woods and there's no one there to see it fall, does it really make a sound? Similarly, if our favourite sports people perform great feats in empty stadiums, sure, the victories and the losses count, but do they really have much riding on them as much as when we were all watching? I'd say no. Fans are a far more vital element of the game than I ever imagined. And the sooner we can bring them back, the better. And I will be a much happier man.
Well said, sir. Yes, it is weird watching sport without crowds, isn't it? It just takes something away, and it's just not the same. And I'm with you, mate. I can't wait to see fans back in the stadiums.
I mean, honestly, before this, I really didn't think about it that much. Did you?
No,
I just thought,
no.
It's just sort of you hear. I mean, probably most. It's brought home most heavily is in the football. Especially with the singing crowds, especially the Premier League and all that. Even though they put the sounds of the singing, it's just weird. It's just strange. It's not the same. And I didn't realize what part we played, man. We play such a big part. We must be, half of it is the fans.
No,
so if we can't appreciate this after the time away, then we never will, mate. So yeah, let's get them back. Let's get rid of this pandemic. Let's find a vaccine. Let's find a vaccine.
Tell me about it.
Anyway.
Very good. Well, on that note, we'll sign off for another week, and next week we'll be back. We'll select our All Black forward pack, and we'll come back with another top 5, courtesy of Grey Friars Motel in Greytown. And yeah.
Okay, just a quick one before we go. Just a quick one. If you've got to the end of this podcast, if you've listened and you've liked it, if you can go back on the thing, there's plenty more podcasts we've done. We're up to about number 15, aren't we? So you can go right back and listen to all our top 5s. Yeah, all our previous top 5s and everything else we've done. If you're interested, we'd also love to hear from you.
Quite right. We'll see you next week. It's good afternoon from me,
and it's good morning from him.